One move from Canada could flip the global energy game upside down. One whispered word from Ottawa could have doubled your gas prices overnight. But it's not just about fuel. It's about a power shift that could change who controls your future. In this video, we're exposing the explosive 2025 showdown when Canada threatened to cut off America's $109 billion oil supply, igniting a battle that nearly paralyzed the U.S. economy. You'll uncover how Trump's 25% tariffs provoked Canada to wield its 4.5 million barrels a day as a weapon, threatening to spike gas prices by 40% and cripple Midwest refineries. We'll break down the raw tension between two nations locked in a high-stakes gamble, America's dependence clashing with Canada's leverage, from Ottawa's chilling warnings to Alberta's rebellion against its own government. This is the story of how neighbors became near enemies, risking mutual economic ruin, and what it reveals about the fragile threads holding our world together. Buckle up. This is a wake-up call. Let's rip the curtain off a truth most Americans miss. The United States runs on Canadian oil. Not just a little, 4.5 million barrels every single day, as reported by the U.S. Energy Information Administration for 2024. That's 60% of all U.S. crude imports, dwarfing OPEC's 15% or Mexico's 10%. Picture this: $109 billion worth of oil snaked through pipelines in 2024, fueling your commute, powering factories, keeping planes in the sky. This isn't a side deal. It's the backbone of the economy. Why Canada? It's not just proximity, it's chemistry. U.S. refineries in Michigan, Ohio, Pennsylvania are built for Canada's heavy crude, thick, tar-like, unique. Try swapping it for Texas shale or Saudi light oil, and the machines choke. 30 years of infrastructure, billions in investment, all wired to one source. You can't retool that overnight. The math doesn't lie, and neither do the pipes. For decades, this was the quiet strength of North America. The U.S.-Canada energy trade was untouchable, a post-World War II pact forged in steel and trust. No votes, no debates, just barrels flowing south, dollars flowing north. 2 million jobs in the U.S. alone, from truckers to chemists, tied to this lifeline, per 2024 trade estimates. It wasn't sexy, but it was sacred, stable, invisible, until it wasn't. In early 2025, one move, one sentence, cracked that foundation. Canada started talking about turning off the tap, and the U.S. realized it wasn't just buying oil. It was addicted. This wasn't about trade anymore. It was about survival. Every gallon of gas, every grocery bill, every light in your house hung in the balance, and no one saw it coming. But why does this matter to you? Because the system you rely on isn't as secure as you think. It's a house of cards, and Canada held the match. The story starts with a spark. Let's dive into what lit the fuse. What happens when your closest ally holds your economy by the throat? You're about to find out. January 2025, Donald Trump storms back into the White House, and the world braces for impact. His playbook? Bold, unapologetic, familiar. He slaps a 25% tariff on Canadian imports. Cars, lumber, steel, you name it. It's a power move, a signal to the world. America first, no exceptions. But when it comes to energy, he pulls back. Canadian oil gets just a 10% tariff. Why? Because the U.S. can't afford to push Canada too far. Let's break it down. Canadian oil isn't a bonus, it's the foundation. 4.5 million barrels a day keep the Midwest humming. That's 60% of U.S. crude imports, feeding refineries that churn out 50% of the nation's gasoline, per 2024 EIA data. Without it, pumps run dry, prices skyrocket, and the economy stalls. Trump knows this. His advisors know it. The people who really run things know it. Canada doesn't roll over. At first, it's classic trade war retaliation. Tariffs on U.S. corn, aluminum, bourbon, $10 billion in countermeasures per 2025 trade reports. It's loud, it's messy, but it's predictable. Markets shrug, expecting the usual back and forth. But by March, something shifts. Canada stops playing defense and starts playing offense. The foreign minister, in a quiet press conference, lets it slip. We've got oil and gas in our arsenal. That word lands like a grenade, energy as a weapon. Suddenly, it's not about tariffs anymore. It's about leverage. Western Canadian Select crude spikes 22% in a week, hitting $60 per barrel. Per Bloomberg's March 2025 futures, U.S. refiners panic, stockpiling like a storm's coming. Gas futures jump to $4 per gallon, and whispers of a crisis ripple through Washington. This wasn't just posturing. Canada's leverage was surgical. The U.S. Strategic Petroleum Reserve, 395 million barrels, enough for 17 days at full tilt, per DOE figures. After that, nothing. No quick drilling, no magic imports. Pipelines only flow north to south, and Canada controls the valve. Trump's team knows an oil shock could crush consumer confidence, dropping his approval to 45% in a March 2025 Gallup poll. This is where it gets real. One sentence from Canada, and America's energy grid trembles. The question isn't just what Canada might do, it's what the US can't. Stick with me, because this fight's about to get brutal. Canada's not bluffing anymore. What happens when they tighten the screws? March 2025. Houston, Texas. CERAWeek, where oil titans and world leaders carve up the energy map. Canada's Energy Minister Jonathan Wilkinson takes the stage. His audience? CEOs, investors, and a few very nervous suits from Washington. His words are measured, almost polite. We're not here to escalate, but we have options. Options. That's the spark that lights the powder keg. Markets don't wait for details. Western Canadian Select, Canada's benchmark crude, surges to $85 per barrel. The price gap with West Texas Intermediate, usually a steady $15, plummets to $6, a level unseen since the 2018 pipeline crunch per S&P Global. In trader terms, it's chaos. A 5-alarm fire. Why? Because Canada just hinted it might choke America's oil supply, and everyone believes they could. Let's unpack why this hits so hard. U.S. refineries aren't just hooked on Canadian oil. They're built for it. 70% of Midwest refining capacity, from Toledo to Chicago, is optimized for Canada's heavy crude, per 2024 refinery data. It's not like flipping a switch to Venezuelan or Alaskan oil. Those don't match the sulfur content, the viscosity, the chemistry. Retool, that's $50 billion and a decade minimum. No backup, no workaround, just pipes, and Canada's hand on the faucet. The ripple effect is instant. U.S. refiners hoard crude, driving storage costs up 30% in a month per Platts. Gasoline futures hit $4.50 per gallon, with EIA projecting $5.75 by May if tensions hold. That's not just a hit to your wallet. It's groceries jumping 10%, electricity bills spiking 15% per BLS estimates. Everything you touch gets pricier, and no one's explaining why. Behind the scenes, panic grips Washington. The American Petroleum Institute sends urgent memos to the White House, warning of a $600 billion GDP hit if supply drops 20% per their 2025 model. Refinery CEOs flood back channels, begging for de-escalation. Trump's advisors know an oil shock could tank his re-election odds, with midterms looming and voters already grumbling at $4 gas, per 8AA's March tracker. Canada's not shouting, they're whispering, and it's deafening. One word, options, and America's energy system wobbles. This isn't a trade war anymore. It's a chess game, and Canada's playing black. Keep watching, because the board's about to flip. America's scrambling, but can Canada really pull this off? The answer might shock you. Here's where the cracks start showing. Not between nations, but inside Canada itself. Ottawa's threat to weaponize oil isn't a united front. It's a gamble splitting the country apart. Ground zero? Alberta, the powerhouse pumping 84% of Canada's crude per Natural Resources Canada. 4 million barrels a day, $105 billion in 2024 exports, almost all to the US. Alberta isn't just a province. It's the engine, and it's not on board. Premier Danielle Smith steps up, voice like steel. Cutting oil to the US? Unacceptable. Alberta won't let it happen. She's not bluffing. Why? Because 88.7% of Canada's oil exports flow to America, per 2024 trade data. No plan B, no global buyers waiting. Canada has no pipelines to Asia, no fleet of tankers on standby. Building that? Try 15 years and $100 billion, per industry estimates. Alberta's economy, 30% tied to oil per Statistics Canada, wouldn't just slow down, it'd collapse. This is the brutal truth Ottawa's ignoring. Threatening to shut the taps is like threatening to torch your own house to scare the neighbor. Canada's refining capacity? 1.9 million barrels per day, barely half its output per cap. No way to use the oil at home, no infrastructure to redirect it. Every barrel stopped is $1 lost, and Alberta's not playing that game. Smith's defiance isn't just regional pride, it's math. Alberta's oil employs 140,000 directly, supports 500,000 jobs nationwide per 2024 labor stats. Shut that down, and Canada's GDP, $2.2 trillion in 2024, could shrink 5% in a year per BMO forecasts. Ottawa's playing poker, but Alberta's holding the cards. Economists see it clear as day. Daniel Treffler, a trade guru, nails it. Canada threatening oil is like sawing off the branch you're both sitting on. The US can't lose Canadian crude without gas hitting $6 per gallon, per Goldman Sachs' 2025 model. Canada can't lose the US without Alberta's economy imploding. Mutually assured destruction, not with missiles, but markets. This isn't just a policy spat. It's a nation at war with itself. Canada's leverage looks unstoppable, but its own heartland could stop it cold. Stay with me, because the real showdown's coming. Canada's fracturing, America's cornered. Who breaks first? Mid-March 2025, Canada's government flips. Justin Trudeau's out, Mark Carney's in. Former Bank of England governor, a financial titan who doesn't deal in fluff. His first address is a blade. This isn't business as usual. Canada's ready to do what's never been done. A bluff, but a damn good one. Carney doesn't speak in headlines, he speaks in margins, and markets listen. Crude futures climb 18%, hitting $90 per barrel, per Reuters March 2025 data. Trump's team feels the heat. His brand is bravado. America First screamed at every rally. But behind closed doors, the math doesn't lie. An oil shock could cost $700 billion in GDP, per Fed projections, spiking unemployment to 6% by Q3 2025, per BLS models. Gas at $6.50 per gallon. That's consumer confidence tanking to 60, per Conference Board estimates, and midterms turning red to blue. Carney's words aren't loud, but they're lethal. Canada's leverage isn't just oil, it's timing. US refineries are at 92% capacity per API, no room to pivot. Strategic reserves? 17 days at best. Trump's advisors know it. Push harder, and Canada might not just threaten, they might act. April rolls in. Trump unveils new tariffs, steel, aluminum, tech, hitting China, Europe, India. But one name's missing: Canada. No mention, no escalation. Senior officials leak to Bloomberg. Canada and Mexico are exempt. No fanfare, no apology. The US blinks, not from kindness, but necessity. America's energy grid can't take the hit. Markets exhale. Western Canadian Select drops to $78 per barrel. The WCS-WTI gap creeping back to $13 per S&P Global. Gas prices settle at $4.10 per gallon, per 8AA's April tracker. High, but no apocalypse. Refiners ease off panic buys. The crisis doesn't explode. It fizzles, but it leaves a mark. The US dodged a bullet, but the gun's still loaded. Keep watching. This isn't over. The storm's passed, but what's left in its wake? You need to see this. The taps stayed open. The barrels kept flowing. But don't be fooled. 2025 broke something permanent. The US learned it's not energy independent. Canada proved it can hold a superpower hostage without firing a shot. For decades, Americans thought their pipelines were fortresses. Now, they're exposed arteries, and Canada's got its finger on the pulse. The numbers tell the story. Gas prices rose 18% year over year, hitting $4.20 per gallon by May 2025, per EIA. Grocery inflation climbed 12% per USDA as transport costs bled through. Canada didn't escape unscathed. GDP growth flatlined at 0.7% per Statistics Canada, with Alberta's unemployment ticking up to 6.5%. The Bank of Canada slashed rates to 2.25%, barely staving off recession. But the real cost wasn't dollars, it was trust. The US-Canada relationship isn't just trade, it's survival. $1.2 trillion in goods crossed the border in 2024, per USTR, with oil the heartbeat. 2 million jobs on both sides, per trade councils, hang on this thread. Enemies? They can't afford it. Not when one valve could spike gas to $7 or bankrupt Alberta overnight. This wasn't a one-off. It was a warning. The next time someone plays the oil card, it might not stop at threats. Power isn't tanks or tweets anymore. It's pipelines, ports, and choke points. America dodged a crisis, but the leverage didn't vanish. It's still there, humming under your roads, flowing beneath your cities, whispering, "This only works until it doesn't." You're not just watching history, you're seeing the future. The world runs on dependencies, and now you know where they crack. This changed everything, and you're ahead of the curve. Don't look away now. This wasn't just a story, it was a signal. Power moves in shadows, and you're one of the few who see it. Subscribe, because the next crisis is already brewing, and you'll want to know before it hits. Election year? That's a political Molotov cocktail Trump might not dodge. For years, the US gorged on Canada's cheap crude, discounted by those pipeline bottlenecks, $15 less per barrel, a sweetheart deal they've taken for granted. Now, TMX is humming, and Canada's got options. Trump's tariff threat isn't just a flex. It's a desperate bid to keep Canada tethered, a bully's tantrum as the leash slips. The tension's electric. Canada's diversification drive didn't start with Trump's bluster. It ignited because the US got too comfortable. Why pour your crude into a neighbor who's ready to slap penalties when Asia's $15 trillion energy market is waving cash? The US built its energy security on Canada's back. 60% of its crude imports flow from the north, a dependency they can't shake overnight. Trump's playing with fire, betting Canada won't bolt. But Ottawa's not blinking. This tariff gambit could backfire spectacularly, pushing Canada into China's arms and leaving US refiners scrambling. The stakes: higher gas prices, squeezed refineries, and a superpower staring down its own arrogance. This isn't diplomacy, it's a high-stakes showdown, and the US might be the one blinking first. While Trump swings his tariff hammer, China's playing a smarter game: silent, ruthless, and devastatingly effective. Enter Rangshan Petrochemical, a refining titan with an 800,000 barrel a day hunger, sinking its claws into Canada's oil patch with surgical precision. June 2025. They ink a deal with Suncor Energy, Canada's heavy-hitting producer, locking in 200,000 barrels monthly from TMX's Pacific Tap. Ships are already booked, very large crude carriers steaming from Burnaby to Zhejiang, per Bloomberg. This isn't a toe dip, it's a calculated invasion. Rangshan set up shop in Calgary, Alberta's oil-soaked soul, in a sleek downtown tower, aiming to lock down 10% of TMX's 890,000 barrel daily capacity by 2026. They're not stopping at Suncor. Sources from the Globe and Mail spill that Rangshan's wooing Cenovus Energy 800,000 barrels daily in 2024, and Canadian Natural Resources Limited, plus global giants like BP and Shell with oil sands stakes. Their weapon? FOB terms, free on board, letting them control the oil from loading, rerouting tankers to Japan or India if prices pop. S&P Global pegs the arbitrage profits at $2 to $3 per barrel. That's millions in their pockets. Flexibility the US can't match. Leading this charge is Wang Jia, a 20-year oil vet who built PetroChina's Canadian trading arm in the 2000s. Deep ties, deal-making swagger, and a playbook to dominate. Why Canada? China's ditching Middle Eastern oil's geopolitical